The movie starts off on a festive street in New York during Christmas, where people walk by exchanging cheerful greetings. A cheerful Santa hands out cards and sweets to passersby, adding to the joy and coziness of the season. The scene then shifts to a dance academy, where girls of all ages are practicing ballet. Several instructors train them for upcoming performances, encouraging them to give their best. Among them is Olivia, a former ballerina who now works as an instructor. As Olivia teaches her students, her daughter Marin runs up to her, asking her to judge her technique. Olivia watches her daughter's moves intently before telling Marin that her technique is perfect. Delighted, Marin runs off to join her friends. A few moments later, Miss Maggie, the owner of the dance academy, approaches Olivia and starts chatting with her. With a solemn face, she talks about how she regrets not being able to teach the girls anymore due to her old age. In response, Olivia smiles and advises Miss Maggie to rest and prepare for her upcoming surgery. Just then, Carrie, a fellow dance teacher and Olivia's friend, walks up and asks Olivia about her plans for Christmas. Olivia admits that she hasn't really thought about it. At that moment, Carrie playfully exclaims that all she wants for Christmas is for a handsome man to fall in love with Olivia. Sighing, she urges Olivia to move on from the past. It turns out that Olivia's husband Nathan passed away about 8 years ago, and ever since then, she could not bring herself to fall for anyone else. Moving forward, Olivia simply rolls her eyes and tells Carrie that she isn't ready for another relationship, adding that she loves her life the way it is and wouldn't want anything more. The scene now changes to Edward Taylor, a business consultant, working on his laptop. Despite being home for Christmas, Edward remains focused on his work, ignoring the festive spirit around him. Frustrated, his sister Beth asks him to postpone his meeting and spend some time with the family. She suggests he help set up the Christmas tree, but Edward declines, explaining he has some important work to finish. It turns out Edward only returned to his hometown to wrap up some pending business. When his nephew Connor learns about this, he begs Edward to put his work aside and help decorate the house for Christmas. Unable to say no, Edward reluctantly agrees. Back at the dance academy, Olivia finishes her errands quickly, asks Carrie to handle things for the day, and heads out to buy presents for Marin. As she's walking around, enjoying the holiday atmosphere, she notices an elderly woman who has dropped her cash on the street. Olivia rushes to help, gathering as much of the scattered money as she can. Edward, who watches this scene unfold, rushes to help as well. Together, they help the old lady, Gertrude, into a nearby toy store. Once inside, they sit her down and ask how much money she lost. Gertrude explains she had saved around $80 to buy Christmas presents for her grandchildren, but suspects some of it was stolen after she dropped it. Hearing this, Olivia and Edward run out of the store and look around for the remaining cash. As expected, they come to learn that someone has taken it all. Feeling bad for the old lady, they decide to pitch in with their own money. They introduce themselves to each other and give $40 each to Gertrude. Not wanting to reveal the truth, they tell her that they found all her money just hanging by the branch of a Christmas tree. Gertrude is elated to hear this and thanks both of them for the help. She praises Olivia and Edward for being so kind and generous, even remarking that they would definitely make a great couple. Things get really awkward after this, so Edward makes up an excuse and runs out as fast as he can. After Gertrude leaves, Olivia walks up to Edward and jokes around with him. They bond really well and feel great that they were able to help an old lady during Christmas time. After a brief conversation, the two decide to part ways. As they bid each other goodbye and head off to finish their shopping, they soon realize they are walking in the same direction. To avoid further awkwardness, they continue talking, with Edward joking that Gertrude might be a scammer who intentionally let her cash blow away, while Olivia insists she's just a sweet old lady eager to spend Christmas with her grandchildren. At one point, Olivia asks Edward if he's excited about Christmas, to which he replies that he's just not into celebrations or festivals. When Olivia asks why, Edward explains that ever since his parents divorced when he was a child, holidays have always felt strained and divided. As a result, he doesn't look forward to Christmas or Easter. Hearing this, Olivia offers her sympathy and assures him that maybe one day, he'll come to feel the true essence of Christmas. They continue their conversation, discussing their jobs, hobbies, and interests. The two get along well and find each other fascinating. As they stroll through a nearby Christmas market, they take in the sights and delicious food stalls. Seizing the moment, Olivia asks Edward if he's based in New York. Edward explains that he travels a lot for work, so New York is more of a home base than a permanent residence. Just then, snow begins to fall, and Olivia squeals in excitement. She gently touches the snowflakes and encourages Edward to join in the moment. However, Edward, who doesn't believe in the magic or spirit of Christmas, simply shrugs, struggling to understand Olivia's enthusiasm for what he sees as a simple holiday. It's clear the two are attracted to each other, yet they are complete opposites. Eventually, Olivia tries to buy some pecans, but realizes she gave all her money to Gertrude. Noticing this, the vendor offers her some pecans for free, and playfully remarks that Olivia and Edward make a cute couple. They both immediately try to correct him, but the vendor just wishes them a Merry Christmas and returns to his work. A short while later, Olivia and Edward sit down on a swing and enjoy their roasted pecans. While swaying gently, Edward asks Olivia about her profession and interests. Olivia shares that she used to be a professional ballerina, but due to some difficult circumstances, she now works as a dance instructor at a ballet academy. She adds that she loves teaching children and helping them reach their goals. Edward nods, then talks about how his work as a consultant also brings him contentment, especially when he sees his clients succeed with the tools and advice he provides. The two engage in a heart-to-heart conversation and realize just how similar their morals and perspectives are. Eventually, Olivia realizes she's late for her dance class. She quickly bids Edward goodbye and hurries away, while Edward, who has started to like her, just stares at her with a longing expression. Later that day, Olivia returns to the academy and meets with Miss Maggie. Since Maggie had called for her earlier, Olivia asks if everything is all right. That's when Miss Maggie reveals that she's planning to retire and sell the academy. Olivia is devastated and tries to offer alternative solutions, but Maggie remains firm in her decision, explaining that she's already found a potential buyer. With a solemn expression, she advises Olivia to start looking for a new job. Distressed, Olivia returns home and starts to think about what might happen next. Sensing the tension, her mom, Barb, hands her some eggnog and encourages her to pour her heart out. While fighting back tears, Olivia tells her mom about Gertrude's situation, and she also talks about Edward and their time together. Barb, excited by the mention of Edward, urges Olivia to get his number and give him a chance. Olivia, however, refuses and finally reveals Maggie's retirement plans. Stressed, she laments that she now has to start job hunting. Hearing this, Barb reassures Olivia that the entire dance community adores her, so finding a new job won't be a problem. She hugs her daughter tightly and tells her that she'll be just fine, perhaps even happier than she is now. Meanwhile, Edward, feeling inspired by Olivia, returns home and makes an effort to spend quality time with his family. He helps Connor decorate the house for Christmas, and even has an engaging conversation with his brother-in-law Matt. Beth, stunned by her brother's change in behavior, smiles gleefully and thanks Edward for setting his work aside and focusing on family. The next morning, an excited Marin begs her mother to take her to the annual Christmas festival. Olivia happily agrees, and soon, the two head over to Evergreen Park. Once there, Olivia encourages Marin to go play with her friends while she sits on a bench, watching the kids run around joyfully. Suddenly, Beth and Connor arrive at the park, followed by Matt and Edward. When Olivia sees Edward standing before her, she is pleasantly surprised and starts chatting with him. Edward greets her warmly and introduces her to Beth and Matt. Beth immediately takes a liking to Olivia and playfully remarks that their meeting again cannot be a coincidence. Smiling, she excuses herself and drags Matt along to give Olivia and Edward some time to talk. Once the two are alone, Olivia and Edward continue their conversation until Marin runs over, proudly showing off the snowman she just made. Olivia compliments her daughter and introduces her to Edward. Edward, initially thinking Olivia is married, tries to back off, but Olivia quickly clarifies that she's a widow. Hearing this, Edward offers his condolences and attempts to change the subject. However, Marin decides they've talked enough and pulls her mother away to see the Christmas murals. Before leaving, Olivia bids Edward goodbye and walks off with Marin. Moments later, Beth and Matt return and drag Edward along to see the Christmas murals as well. However, Edward refuses, explaining that he'll be leaving New York soon, and since Olivia doesn't seem interested in dating, trying to woo her would be a waste of time. In response, Beth urges him to give it a shot, suggesting that this could be his golden chance to start a family of his own. Edward, however, is hesitant about entering a new relationship, still affected by his parents' divorce and a recent messy breakup. After much insistence from Beth, he reluctantly agrees. Later, at Camden Street, Olivia and Edward meet again. The two admire the Christmas murals around them, even helping finish a few while chatting and joking together. Afterward, Olivia, Marin, and Edward's entire family head to a nearby cafe. They order an assortment of cookies and delicious hot chocolate. While sipping her drink, Beth asks Olivia about the dance academy and her previous work as a ballerina. In response, Olivia explains that she teaches all kinds of dance forms and even talks about her students. She then reveals that Miss Maggie is retiring, so she's actually looking for a new job. Edward is shocked to hear this and offers to help her find one. He assures her that with her talent, any dance academy would flourish. Olivia is touched by his words and sincerely thanks him. At one point, Edward accidentally smears hot chocolate and whipped cream all over his face. Seeing this, Connor and Maren burst out laughing. Olivia, who has also started to fall for Edward, moves closer to him and gently wipes the cocoa off his face. Beth smiles in excitement, watching them grow closer. Later, everyone goes back to the festival to meet Santa. While the kids play with Santa, Olivia and Edward sit on a bench and chat happily. They even flirt with one another and enjoy each other's company. Edward thinks of Olivia as smart and nurturing, while Olivia feels that Edward is kind and humorous. They both sense that they are perfect for each other, but neither can admit it out loud. As the day goes on, Edward receives several calls from his colleagues. He excuses himself, explaining that he has been putting off work all morning and really needs to get back to it. Olivia understands and bids him goodbye. Before leaving, Edward gives her his number, written on a napkin, and awkwardly tells her to call him if she ever needs anything. Olivia gladly takes the number and says goodbye. Later that day, Olivia and Maren return home, chatting about their favorite moments of the day. Olivia places the napkin with Edward's number near her phone, intending to save it. Unfortunately, Maren uses the napkin to wipe up a coffee spill, causing the numbers to smudge. As a result, Olivia loses the chance to save Edward's number. 3 days later, Beth and Edward go to a toy store to buy presents for Connor. Beth wonders why Olivia never called Edward, especially since they were so attracted to each other. However, Edward simply shrugs, clearly hurt. That's when Beth tries to search for Olivia's dance studio so Edward can reach out to her, but Edward asks her not to. He asserts that he doesn't want to force her into anything and would rather she call him to take things forward. Thankfully, Beth understands and respects his decision. Meanwhile, at the dance studio, Olivia and Carrie finalize the details for the upcoming ballet recital on Christmas. Carrie asks Olivia why Edward never called her. Olivia explains with a sigh that she never gave him her number. She then adds that both of their careers are unstable at the moment, and she worries that their relationship might become complicated. The next day, Olivia leaves the dance academy a little early and heads to a store for some shopping. While she's browsing, she runs into Beth. Excited, Beth immediately asks why Olivia never called Edward, to which Olivia replies that despite wanting to, she unfortunately lost his number. Beth feels relieved to hear this and immediately hands her Edward's number. She also asks for Olivia's number, just in case. After a brief conversation, Beth wonders if all of this is happening because Gertrude blessed Olivia and Edward to be a happy couple. They realize it might all be fate, since Gertrude loses her money and ultimately ends up helping many people. Both Olivia and Beth believe it's just Christmas magic. In the meantime, Edward and his client discuss their upcoming projects together. At that moment, Edward gets a text from Beth, telling him that Olivia is just down the street. He quickly excuses himself and rushes out of the building. He then enters the dance academy and watches as Olivia gracefully teaches her students ballet. Soon after, Olivia notices him and greets him while explaining that she accidentally lost his number. Edward nods, saying that he already knew since Beth had texted him about it. As they're talking, Edward's client walks into the dance academy and is immediately impressed. Excited, the client exclaims that he wants to buy the academy and suggests they put in an all-cash offer so Maggie will sell it as soon as possible. Both Edward and Olivia are shocked by the client's spontaneous decision. Concerned, Olivia asks Edward if he knows about the client's interest in buying the academy. Edward assures her he's just as surprised as she is. Olivia then asks if he can convince his client not to buy the property, but Edward declines, explaining that the academy is perfect for his client and advising against the sale would be dishonest in his job. Olivia sighs and finally asks if they can at least host the Christmas recital there before the sale. Edward promises to try his best to convince his client. Seeing Olivia so upset makes Edward feel guilty. He runs after her and offers to help her start her own dance studio. Though Olivia initially declines, Edward persists, assuring her that he can offer valuable business advice and provide her with the necessary tools. After some contemplation, Olivia finally agrees. Later, Olivia, Barb, and Maren attend the annual tree lighting ceremony, where they bump into Edward and Beth. Barb is immediately enchanted by Edward and cheerfully introduces herself. After chatting for a while, they all watch the town's Christmas tree light up beautifully. As the town celebrates, Edward seizes the moment to hold Olivia's hand and express his feelings, which she reciprocates. The two thus grow closer than ever. Afterward, they walk down Camden Street and come across a vacant space. Edward lights up and suggests they rent it for Olivia's dance studio. Olivia hesitates, saying she doesn't have enough money. That's when Edward advises her to take out a small business loan, assuring her that her business will be successful and that she has what it takes to be a great business owner. After pondering for a while, Olivia hesitantly agrees. That night, after putting Marin to bed, Olivia reflects on Edward's proposal. Since she has always dreamed of owning her own studio, she decides to move forward with the plan. She calls Edward to confirm her decision and asks him to join her in visiting the space and planning the renovations. Edward readily agrees and praises her decision. The following day, while Maggie, Carrie, and Olivia are decorating the academy for the upcoming Christmas recital, Edward arrives and asks to speak with Olivia privately. He tells her he's already spoken with a loan officer and a contractor, so now all they need to do is pre-launch Olivia's dance studio and promote it as much as possible. Shortly after, Edward and Olivia decide to grab something to eat, and whilst doing so, they plan on brainstorming ideas for the dance studio promotion. They head to a nearby market and get some hot dogs. While eating, they talk about how fate brought them closer, marveling at the series of coincidences that led to their meeting. Later, they decide to take a carriage ride across town, enjoying the festive atmosphere. They chat happily, and Edward thanks Olivia profusely for helping him rediscover the true meaning of Christmas. He explains that, after his parents' divorce, he had lost interest in the holiday, seeing it as a disappointing time. But now, he stands corrected and feels as though he has been missing on so many joyous occasions his whole life. Upon hearing this, Olivia simply smiles and says that she's glad she could help him live life again. Meanwhile, Gertrude happens to run into the couple multiple times and beams with delight, thrilled that her blessing for them has come true. As the day winds down, Olivia and Edward return to her home, where Marin greets them cheerfully. She then requests them both to help her bake some Christmas cookies. Both Olivia and Edward agree to this and immediately get ready for the ultimate bake-off. Barb joins them shortly after, and thus, they all have loads of fun together. Eventually, Edward says his goodbyes and heads for the door. Just before leaving, he gives Olivia a quick peck on the cheek, exclaiming that he can't wait to see her again. The next day, Olivia and Carrie continue helping their students rehearse for the upcoming Christmas recital. Just then, Maggie runs towards him, panicking, and exclaims that they'll have to vacate the academy within a week. This means that they would not be able to host the recital there. As expected, Carrie and Olivia are devastated to hear this. They try to think of some alternative, but nothing comes to mind. Desperate, Olivia heads to the bank to talk to the loan officer, only to learn that the loan won't be available for several weeks. Dejected, she returns home and confides in Barb, who urges her to stay calm and wait to see what happens. Barb suggests asking Edward for help, but Olivia refuses. She explains that she doesn't want to get his hopes up without certainty, and that she wants to handle things herself this time. Just as they're talking, Olivia receives a message from the bank informing her that the loan has been approved. Overjoyed, Olivia and Barb celebrate, once again believing in the magic of Christmas. At that moment, Edward knocks on the door, greeting them cheerfully. Olivia excitedly tells him that the loan has been approved, which means they can use the new studio for the recital. Edward congratulates her warmly, and they celebrate together with some eggnog. The next day, Olivia, Edward, Carrie, and a group of girls work together to decorate the space as much as possible for the recital. They immediately start with renovations and lighting as well. Olivia hands Carrie the recital itinerary, and then heads to a nearby bakery to pick up some confectionery items. Afterward, Olivia goes to the bank to thank her loan officer for her help. There, she sees the loan officer chatting with Edward. With a gleeful smile, she greets them and hands over some baked goods. Much to her dismay, Edward is shocked to see her and asks what she's doing there. It turns out that Edward and the loan officer, Lynn, are very good friends. Since they've known each other for years, Edward asked Lynn to approve Olivia's loan. Lynn readily agreed and processed the loan immediately. When Olivia learns this, she is heartbroken. She feels betrayed by Edward, as she wants to handle the loan process herself. Despite her earlier request for Edward not to interfere, he had still gotten involved. Olivia expresses her disappointment and asks if he ever truly believes in her. Edward replies that he did, but he just wanted to make things easier for her. Dejected, Olivia tells Edward that she'll eventually have to figure things out on her own once he leaves after Christmas. She also makes it clear that, despite their mutual feelings, they can never be together. Finally, she tells him that she doesn't even want to think about a relationship right now. As expected, Edward is devastated. His long-held fear that everything would fall apart during Christmas becomes a reality, and his childhood trauma resurfaces. Distressed, Edward storms out of the bank, saying that he's done enough to help her, and now wants to move on to the next person who needs his help. He wishes Olivia the best with her recital and her new studio before walking out abruptly. Later that day, a very anxious Olivia goes to the Christmas market to cheer herself up. There, she runs into Gertrude, who asks if she's okay. Olivia confesses that she isn't, and shares the details of her encounter with Edward earlier. She also explains that her fear of falling in love again ultimately drove Edward away. Gertrude listens to it all quietly, and then reassures Olivia that everything will eventually fall back into place. That night, Edward packs his bags, ready to leave New York. However, Beth stops him and asks what's wrong. After Edward explains the situation, Beth urges him to fight for his love and not give up so easily. Despite her pleas, Edward remains adamant in his decision to leave. Just then, Matt arrives and hands Edward a mysterious gift from an old lady. Curious, Edward opens the box and finds some cash, a Christmas ornament, and a small note from Olivia, thanking him for the most romantic business meeting of her life. Edward is touched to see this and smiles gleefully. Back at Olivia's dance studio, the kids get ready for their recital performance and dance beautifully. Olivia, Carrie, and Barb cheer them on, clapping loudly after the performance. Shortly after, Olivia hugs Marin tightly, praising her exceptional dance skills. Just then, Olivia turns around and sees Edward standing in the crowd. Now shocked, she slowly walks up to him and thanks him for attending the recital. Edward smiles and tells her that receiving the gift box is all he needs to stop and pursue his love. He then goes on to explain that an old lady had helped deliver the box. Upon hearing this, Olivia realizes that the old lady must have been Gertrude, and even understands that she had been playing matchmaker all along. Moving forward, Olivia and Edward apologize to each other for their mistakes, recognizing that they're both deeply in love. Edward then tells Olivia that he's staying in New York to build a family with the people he loves. Olivia is ecstatic to hear this and hugs him tightly. Eventually, Olivia and Edward's families decide to celebrate Christmas together. As they head to the bakery for cocoa, Olivia and Edward stay back and decide to start a new chapter of their lives together. The movie ends with the two of them kissing passionately, finally realizing that Gertrude had been Mrs. Claus, spreading Christmas magic all along.